Now, some people may have gone to some far-flung fancy places like Greece, 33rd Street knits. I'm looking at you. I, however, went to the Peak District, so grab a brew, put your feet up, and let's talk about it. So welcome back to any returning viewers, and to any new viewers, a very warm welcome to you. Now, in the UK, the 1st of September marks the beginning of meteorological autumn. Not that anyone's told the weather. So we've had some glorious summer weather the past little while. Last week, I was lucky enough to get some time away with my partner in the Peak District. We went to Buxton, which is the highest market town in England. And those of you in the UK will be familiar with Buxton Water. That's a brand of bottled water for those of you who are further afield. And it's actually a natural spring water, so it comes direct from the ground. You can fill your own bottles up from a fountain near the hotel that we stayed at for free. And there's actually a provision in British law that spring water is to be provided for free to the people living in Buxton. So that free fountain is always going to be there. And it means that this particular fountain has a bit of a unique legal status in the UK. I don't know of any other fountains in the UK that are enshrined in law in this way. I mean, there might be, I just don't know about them. Now, in addition to having drinking water that comes directly out of the ground, there's actually an ancient connection to Buxton. I believe there's a Roman connection, and it's actually in the historical records that Mary Queen of Scots spent some time on a couple of different occasions in Buxton whilst she was in captivity, obviously before her execution. So she came to Buxton to take the waters to help her with various health conditions that she had. Whilst we were there, we of course spent some time in the spa as well as going for a few walks. I'll put some footage on screen of our walk up to Solomon's Temple, which was the easier walk that we did, so that you can get a sense of what the area is like, what the weather was like. Solomon's Temple is a Victorian folly. So you walk through a wooded area that's been planted on an old lime quarry up to this Victorian folly at the top. And unsurprisingly, given the name of the area, the Peak District is known for its hills. So yeah, as I say, this was one of the easier walks that we did. Some of the others were a little bit more on the vertical side, so a little bit tough. The Pennine Way actually passes through this region, and that's a really popular walk with hikers. So it goes quite far up the country. It's our equivalent of the one that goes all the way down the States. Obviously, much smaller scale, because much smaller country. So a bit more compact. But yeah, a really popular hiking route. Now, having come back from my trip with some souvenir yarn, which I'll show you in a bit, I thought it might be fun to take a look at some of the fabricy, yarny shops that are based in the Peak District, whether they're bricks and mortar or online, so you can get a sense of what's around there to help me to plan my next trip. So as a caveat, I haven't actually been to all of these places. In fact, most of them I've not been to or had any dealings with. So the ones that I have, I'll let you know as I get to them. And obviously all relevant website links will be in the description down below. So without any further ado, let's get to it. First up is Airs and Graces in the wonderfully named Darley Dale. Now, Airs and Graces offers fabric, haberdashery, embroidery and cross-stitch supplies. They also stock yarn, and they're Ashford stockists. In addition to all of that, they run courses, and details of the courses can be found on the website. So yeah, lots of stuff going on there. May have to pop and give them a visit, particularly when I'm in the market for a loom. It's not that far away from me. It's the next county over. It's fine. I can get there in a few hours. I'm sure I can carry a loom and a wheel back on the train. Yeah, that's doable. Must be, she says, having struggled to walk up a hill. And yeah, so they I think are worth checking out if you're into any sort of making. It's a bit of a common theme actually. The stores in the UK, you get some yarn specific stores, you get some fabric specific stores, and then you get these wonderful stores that stock everything crafty. So yeah, so that's what you see a lot of in these smaller towns. So next up we have Rose and Foxgloves. Now, Google tells me that Rose and Foxgloves is based in Bakewell, but the website for Rose and Foxgloves doesn't give me a street address. So I don't think they've got a bricks and mortars store, at least not one that I've been able to find. So Bakewell is a lovely little town. It's the home of Bakewell Wool Gathering and the Bakewell Tart. It won't take you very long to have a bit of an explore, and if they do have a bricks and mortar store, you'll probably come across it, and you'll have time to stop into the bakery, the actual proper Bakewell Tart bakery that sells the official Bakewell Tarts. Yeah, they were shut when we went to Bakewell Wool Gathering, so I didn't get one. But yeah, nice pretty little town. Yeah, shouldn't take you long to explore. So definitely well worth doing that if you're up for the yarn festival. Rose and Foxgloves is an independent fabric designer, so her focus is primarily on vintage inspired interiors. So you're going to see plenty of fabric suitable for curtains and blinds and trimmings and wallpapers, and there's a selection of vintage decor and furniture items. She's also developing a range of craft bundles that look to me like they'd be pretty good for quilting. So definitely worth having a little look on that website for Peak District based suppliers. Staying in Bakewell, let's pop over to Wye Wool. Now Wye, W-Y-E, Wye Wool is named after the River Wye, which runs through the town of Bakewell and much of the Peak District. Fun fact, there are actually 3 River Wyes in the UK. The shortest is 11 miles long, and that's in Buckinghamshire. The longest is 85 miles long, and that runs between England and Wales. So some of it's in England, some of it's Wales. Some of it is the border between the 2 countries. But this particular River Wye that goes to the Peak District starts in Paul's Caverns, which is at the bottom of the hill that you go up to get to Solomon's Temple. So it originates there, and it runs through Buxton, through the Peak District, through Bakewell for 15 miles, 1-5. So yeah, we keep naming things the same thing. And on top of that, bonus fun fact, our guide around Paul's Caverns told us that Wye means river. We're making the River Wye the river. However, Google tells me that Wye comes from the Anglo-Saxon for idol or place of heathen worship, which, given the ancient Celts that were in the British Isles prior to the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons, they were known for having these rituals around water and throwing swords into rivers and lakes, hence the Arthur Lady in the Lake business. So that's a known thing. So if they're going to be worshipping around rivers and worshipping around waters, it makes sense that we've got lots of rivers called River Idol or River Place of Worship. That makes sense. So yeah, that's a little bit of information about the rivers for you. But moving back to Wye Wool itself, the website is not the most informative. It gives you a contact form, it gives you the street address of the store, and it tells you that they do yarn and knitting patterns and haberdashery. It also gives you a link to their Facebook page. So as I say, if you're in Bakewell for Bakewell Wool Gathering, it's definitely worth having a look, seeing what's going on, seeing if they're open, because small towns, not everything's open all the time. My local yarn shop only opens some of the week, which is fine, because it opens on days I'm not working, so not a problem. Yeah, so definitely worth a look if you're in Bakewell. Have a Bakewell Tart, see if you can find the wool shop, go to Bakewell Wool Gathering. That's a good day out. So, back to Buxton, and going one stop away on the train, we get to Chapel on Le Frith. If there's one thing we do well in the UK, it's naming places. Chapel on Le Frith. Harking back to our Norman history. So Chapel on Le Frith is where you will find Cantor decor. Now, as the name suggests, this is an Asian textile stores. So their website states that their range, I'm reading this directly, their range features pieces which have been handcrafted in line with Cantor quilt custom, using traditional methods of hand embroidery, block printing and upcycling of pre-loved materials. So you're going to find quilts and bed sheets and clothings and accessories and some fabrics, all at Cantor Decor in Chapel on Le Frith. There are lots of Asian communities around the country, and that side of the country is moving towards Manchester, Manchester and parts of Lancashire and Yorkshire have large Asian communities, so it's no surprise that we've got an Asian fabric store in that region, but you will see them popping up here and there around the place because we do have these pockets of Asian communities around the country. So let's head back to Buxton and we'll go into the yarn store that I actually visited. Now I say yarn store, but this is one of these stores that sells everything makey, or at least everything sort of fibre textile-y makey, and that is Sew in Buxton. So this particular store stocks commercial and hand-dyed yarns, as well as we saw lots of haberdashery in there, we saw embroidery yarn in there, we saw cross-stitch kits, embroidery kits, diamond painting kits, and for the size of the store, it's a pretty small store, a really good amount of fabric to buy by the yardage, or meterage, because although we measure people in inches in the UK, we measure our fabric in meters. So that's where I picked up a couple of souvenir skeins from a local indie dyer, Peak District Yarns. Now these are both high twist 4-ply, so sock weight or fingering weight, depending on your preferred terminology. They are 80/20 merino nylon, and that's 365 meters. The label doesn't give the yardage because this is the UK, we buy things by meters, even though we measure our bodies in feet and inches. So Peak District Yarns dye colourways are inspired by the local landscapes, and I think they're named after the area that inspired them, at least that's what it seems to be looking at the labels. I don't know the area well enough to be able to tell you on the map where these particular places are. The dyer itself, Peak District Yarns, are based in Tideswell, and they are open to the public on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They're on the Peak District Yarn Trail. I don't know if they're the people that organised it, it wouldn't surprise me, but Peak District Yarn Trail. I picked up a flyer, this is the flyer, whilst I was in Sew in Buxton, and I've not included all of the stock shops that are on here, in fact most of them I haven't, but I will link down below to a digital copy of this flyer, so if you are coming to the Peak District you can do your own self-guided tour of all those yarn places, so that information will be there for you. And I suppose I ought to show you the yarn itself, really, shouldn't I? Now I picked out these particular skeins because they seem to be a cohesive colour combination, and they also look like they would work well with a colour palette that I enjoy wearing, so that gives me the most flexibility when it comes to choosing how I'm going to use them. So they're both sock yarns, so they may well just be socks, they might be teamed together to make a Musselburgh hat, they might be paired together to make a shawl, they might be used as contrast colours in colourwork sweaters. I like to think in these terms when I'm picking up yarn that I have no immediate plans for, because it gives me just the most choice when it comes to actually picking up the yarn and using it. Sometimes I fail and go, oh, pretty, but this time I think I've done quite well. So the first yarn is this one. This is Stanton Moor, which is this lovely neutral-ish purple leaning grey with these flashes of white and creamy yellow, so that's rather lovely. So that's the first one, and I think that's going to pair really nicely with this one, which is Over Haddon. Yes, Over Haddon. Don't know why that's named that way, but this is this lovely dusky purple with a little bit of speckling on, so I think they're going to pair together really nicely. And of course I'll let you know what I eventually get made with these yarns, but as I haven't started working with my souvenir yarns from Paris yet, might be some time. Okay, so let me know in the comments down below if you've been to the Peak District and if there's any spots that I may have missed out that you think should be included, or if you've got any suggestions of what I could make with this yarn. I'd be grateful to hear that too, so do let me know. Now I will see you next week, but whilst you're waiting for that video, there's this one on screen that may be of interest, and in the meantime, happy crafting and bye bye for now.